Today, joining us on Recovery Works is Daniel. Daniel's been an absolutely amazing client to work with and someone who's succeeded and had so much achievement in his recovery and treatment planning with us. He decided to come on and share his story and how he can best help others get involved and change their lives. So, Daniel.
How's it going? Glad to be here today.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to do it, man.
So, Daniel, how long have you been in recovery with us now?
I've been here this time for about 14 to 16 months somewhere, and there's been a little over a year, I think, since I come here. It kind of is going so fast. I haven't been keeping track, but I've been working on and off recovery for about 5 to 6 years now. So
awesome.
So
what was it, to go back in the past a little bit and give some preface, what was it that led you to, experimenting with drugs and opioids and that whole journey of how you got onto drugs?
I think a lot of it, just goes back to when I was a child and my family had a lot of drug use, smoking, drinking, things of that nature, I was around it a lot. And then basically, I think one of the critical moments in my life was when my grandmother passed away. Of course, she was a real parental figure for me. And when my mom was out doing whatever, my grandma was always there to take care of me. And upon her passing, my mom tended to somewhat wild out, I guess. She kind of took off and did her own thing for a while and just left me, as 11, 12 years old to make my own choices and deal with a lot of my own responsibilities. And I, started smoking weed and experimenting with that. We were kids, just, air duster, just whatever, kids experiment with. And, that just kind of progressed into my teenage years with experimenting with other things, trying this or that. And I seen it come, and I seen the opioid epidemic come, and really, a lot of my friends started using Oxycontin and stuff right around senior year. And then upon graduation, it became all about Oxycontin for a lot of them. So I kind of took off, and I moved down to Nashville. I had some family that had moved down there, and they were being, prospering down there. So I thought, I'll go check out Nashville. That sounds cool, get away from the pills. But, ultimately you can't run from addiction or, drugs. They're always going to find you, or you are always going to find them. So I lived there for about 7 years, and during that time, I had spurts where I was clean for 2 or 3 months, clean for 6 months, and then I'd go back to just dabbling here and there. I always felt like I had a handle on everything, Then a big moment was when I was in a forklift accident. I worked at a Nissan plant, and it was through a contractor, and basically I had the landing gear of a semi-container collapse on me, the legs that hold up the front, and I was inside it grabbing the last couple of parts off a forklift, so it bounced around, it knocked over another container and another one, a domino effect. So I just kept continuously getting jarred, and it hurt my back. And so I went to a doctor, and it turns out that doctor wasn't so much about, making you better as opposed to just making you numb to things. So started off, on just regular pain pills, and then it became 30s and just things like that. And if I was taking my medication as prescribed, I would just be toast, and but it led to just getting worse and worse. And then whenever I couldn't afford to go to the doctor because, I had got laid off from the tsunami that hit Japan, Nissan had to lay a lot of people off, and then I couldn't afford to, go to the doctor, $400 a month. So that just led to buying them on the streets. And that just leads to a different kind of lifestyle to where, you're hanging around a lot of unsavory people. You're doing a lot of things you probably normally wouldn't do just to get your drugs for the day or whatnot. And
of course,
that I kind of felt the pressure building up there too. So I was like, okay, I moved to Texas for a couple of years. I got a job managing a 7-Eleven. I was a manager of a gas station, a night manager. And this was my opportunity to be a general manager. And I thought, okay, I'm getting away from the stuff again. I'm moving on, running away from the drugs. But eventually in Texas, they found me as well. I did really good for myself for a while, managing the store. And my grandfather passed away, my grandmother's husband. And I guess I just wasn't able to deal with that, or maybe just being away from my family and coming back for the funeral. And when I came back to the funeral, I used, and that was a big thing, So then when I got back down there, it was partly missing home, partly missing probably the drugs in a way too,
Sure.
So, ultimately I ended up losing my job down there, and I moved back home. And I did I call it Pike County problems, is what I used to call it. Just living over there and being around, it really is an epidemic going on in Southern Ohio. And just for the next year and a half, basically, I was using on and off here and there, and I tried to help my parents get off of the pills and stuff, and they were doing very well for themselves. And I introduced them to Suboxone as I found it too.
Wow.
And it really kind of helped us all, more me and my stepfather than anything. We were able to get off pills completely and things like that. But then, of course, they did their own thing. I couldn't look after them forever, but I was doing really good. I was on Suboxone for about 16 months. I was going to school. I enrolled in college, and, I wanted to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to do. And I was doing really good with that. And that all kind of just led up to me actually losing my prescription. I made a mistake. After another death in the family, an uncle of mine passed away. I chose to use, and that led to me being kicked out of the place I was going at the time. And, after having 16 months on Suboxone and doing so well for myself, I bought a vehicle. I was going to college. I was doing really good. And when I lost that, somebody said, hey, here, try this. This will help you with your detox and keep you going, help you where you can work and you can do whatever. And I was like, oh, what is it? And it was meth. And
Wow.
Meth really led me down a very bad road, and I was doing so well. And then once I started using the meth just to handle my detox, because I think that's one of the biggest fears people have is the actual detox. It is almost crippling in a way to where you're so scared to do anything without your normal drug use of the day, or even just that peace of mind that comes from even, going to get the drugs. You're okay when you're going to get them mentally. Your brain, releases those endorphins or whatever that makes you feel like, okay, I'm getting my fix for the day.
Sure.
So you're immediately feeling better.
Sure.
And meth kind of subdued all that. It's like, oh, I'm just going, I'm ready to go. That just, made things worse. You don't see it at the time. You think you have a handle on things, like, oh no, I don't have a problem. And then you get worse and worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, it led to me becoming incarcerated for some of my choices I made. And that was a really, really dark time in my life. My first time really ever getting in trouble. And it was to the point where I had to go to prison over it. And It was like, I don't get probation or nothing. I don't, and the judge said, I know what you did wasn't as bad. You didn't have any bad intentions, but you didn't think about what it looked like to onlookers, or if somebody else would have seen that and misinterpreted it and pulled out a real gun and shot some people or stuff, even though it was just a prank kind of going wrong. It led to me becoming incarcerated, and the judge offered me a chance for an early judicial, and because I had worked some steps, and I did time on an ankle monitor, and I kind of walked the line for a while, and then I was incarcerated. I got a judicial to release to a SEPTA program, which was good for me. It helped. I was in a good state of mind and everything, but immediately upon release and going back to, the crazy girlfriend I had at the time and my parents' house where there was a lot of drug use and a lot of things that you can't avoid when they're right in your face.
Of course.
It basically I ended up going right back to the same thing, doing the same stuff, same stupid behaviors, and it became very bad even then. I'm running from the law just because I hadn't reported to my probation. I'm homeless, sleeping outside or on this friend's couch or that friend's couch, like nothing to show for it basically. And a lot of it I think was to do with my toxic relationship I was in with this woman. When you're under the substance, abuse, or you're using drugs, you think you're in love, or you think this is the main thing in my life, this relationship. When in all actuality, it's probably the thing that's hurting you the most in your relationship. If it's not a healthy relationship, you have to remove yourself from it.
Of course.
So I broke it off with them, and I was still kind of just bouncing around a little bit. And then the thing that I think really saved my life, along with Clinic 5 and the use of Suboxone, is I met my wife, And me and her, we went to school together, but we wasn't close, didn't know each other that well. But, we started dating a little bit, and we both realized we were at a point in our lives where we wanted to change. We were 30 years old now, time to stop messing around. We wanted something out of our lives, and everyone's like, oh, you can't do it together. Two addicts can't do this, can't do that. And I said, well, if we get into recovery, and we both started going to like a weekly place and got on Suboxone, and it's changed our lives. It really has. Like, we were able to get our mind right and get into a state of mind where we could set goals and work towards those goals. Take it day by day at first. And, you're always going to have that thought. You're always going to have that little bit of a addiction mentality in the back of your brain. But at the same time, having those goals and just that, family I had submerged myself in, my wife had 4 kids. So, I was taking on a lot, but it was also good for me to have, because when you go into that kind of isolation of drug use, and you just sit and nonstop feel sorry for yourself or feel ashamed of the mistakes you made, and it's just constantly there in your mind lingering, and the only thing that numbs that is drugs. So for me personally, I know it helped me to have, Suboxone for one. That way I didn't have to have those, cravings or whatnot. It really helped with the cravings. And once I locked that down, I was able to submerge myself into my family. And, it has done wonders. Me and my wife, we got clean, and we were using Suboxone. And I started setting goals for ourselves. We're like, let's get it. We had nothing. We were pretty much homeless, just living with our parents, And it's like, okay, let's get a car. Then let's get a house. Then it's okay, let's get a second car for you. And then it's okay, let's get a bigger house that we can get our kids to come live with us. And we did all that stuff, And through that process, I actually stopped going to a weekly place and I started coming here. And you guys had us set some other goals, It was like, okay, let's get better cars. Let's buy a house, And we was able to accomplish that stuff,
Wow.
And we got our kids back. We got full custody of our kids and all that, I feel like was really through the use of Suboxone, just locking down those cravings, triggers, just keeping us normal to where we could focus on our family and we didn't have that stigma of the drug use anymore or that mentality. And here we are going on 4 years sober now, and we've just made amazing strides in that time.
That's really incredible, man.
It's been a wild ride, and
Sure.
like I said, people had said that we couldn't do it together and stuff, but if you are in a healthy relationship where you can be someone's support or they can be support for you when you feel those slight triggers, or whatnot, because like even now I can't even go back to see my family sometimes because it's just, there's too many memories there.
Of course.
And I know they're still using drugs, and it really puts you in a sad situation. And like me and my wife are taking on my nephew now. He's going to have to come live with us for a while because my sister just had to go to a rehab facility. So
wow.
I'm glad she's taking the proper steps, but more importantly, I'm glad that I am where I am now, that I'm able to help her take him in, And 4 or 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been in a place to do that. I still had time looming over my head. I was like, I really thought I was just headed right back to prison, and then just enough was enough, man.
That's incredible, Daniel. I think I really enjoyed how you touched on how your family was really caught up and plagued by addiction. It sounds like some mental health problems that maybe the drug addiction really preyed on, and how you were able to get away from that. That is an incredible feat. A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people, they fall into the same routine, and then they're just the same story, and then their kids follow into it. And
Absolutely.
by the end of the time, you've got several generations of family that have just completely been conquered by this substance abuse problem.
And it is bad too, in Southern Ohio especially, like meth has ran rampant after the price of pain pills has went so high that the people turn to a cheaper alternative.
Sure.
And they start using this meth, and it's really, I know some people that really are not in the same state of mind. I don't know if they ever will be in the same state of mind because of their drug use has been so persistent, gone on for so long. Like I fear for the person I once knew,
Sure.
And I try to tell them all the time, just get away from where you're at, get away from these same behaviors, these same places and things. Everything that Clinic 5 has taught me, get away from old habits, old friends, whatever. I don't have Facebook. I don't use Facebook, haven't for years. Yeah. And it's just because I don't want to associate with any of the old me, anybody that the old me messed around with or talked to, people I grew up with. I have maybe a handful of them that are clean and doing well that I speak to. And other than that, it's all about my family, man. For me, that was a big thing. Just, having that family where I wasn't alone and isolated anymore. And I was able to express myself and be there, like I was able to, through the pandemic even, like I got laid off for a little while, and that was unfortunate, but it also gave me time to spend with my children, and I was able to coach my boys' basketball teams, and my work schedule normally don't do that. So, there's just so many uplifting things have been possible through just, me locking down my addiction through Suboxone and treatment program at Clinic 5. It really has helped me. And, my wife's here. She's going to be going through this too. So
I'm so excited, man, because it's, this problem, what I hate is how it continues to get worse. We always think, oh, well, it's probably going to get worse, but then you watch it get worse. 2020, the 12 months of the deadliest, we saw almost 90,000 people die reported. So the unreported is probably a lot higher. And it's just, that breeds hopelessness for people who are caught in the life of addiction. They think, oh my God, well, I'm more likely to become a statistic of death than a recovery story. And it's absolutely incredible for you to say, look, I've had a family who went through all the problems, who passed it to me down. I had the negative support system, my ex-girlfriend who we used together, and you completely resurrected your life into something that is away from the norm. It said, I'm going to go this whole different way. I'm going to change who I am. I'm going to change how my life is manifesting so that it aligns with the things I value, the things I want in my life, the family I want, your wife,
Yeah.
and now to see you be this successful, man, and you're a pillar. I mean, what a pillar of confidence, strength that you are now.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
this video alone, you never know who might be on the fence about recovery or not even considering it, but watch someone who's relate to your story and then change their life for the better.
Absolutely. I mean, I could say one thing that I really noticed was the negative outlook I had when I was using, and like you said, that just negativity. And when upon getting sober, I started trying to practice the power of positivity, the secret or whatever you want
Sure,
to call
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it really helped me, just because I do believe that negativity breeds a negative outcome. But if you stay positive, and just have a little positivity about things, then you're going to breed a positive outcome.
Yeah.
Manifest what you want or whatever you
Mm.
want to call it, but just stay positive about
Stay
things,
positive.
because it's so easy to get locked up into that negative thinking. And what do they call it? There's like a Velcro effect or something, where I could tell
Yeah.
you 100 different positive things, but one negative thing, and you're going to hang on to that one negative thing more than you
Sure.
are the 100 positive things I told you.
Sure.
So I mean, just keep that in mind, that anybody can do it. If you really want to get sober and you really want to do it, take it seriously. I know
Seriously.
Suboxone does have a bad rap with some people. They're like, oh, people abuse it or people sell it or do whatever. But if you are serious about getting sober, Suboxone can save your life.
Right.
It really can. I mean, I don't know where I would be without it. I
Sure.
was talking to my wife on the way here today. I was like, I don't want to take anything away from us and what we've accomplished, but at the same time, I don't know if any of that would have been possible without Suboxone, and just being able to not have all those, triggers and cravings and just the crazy stuff that goes along with it. It really just helped us get to a sense of normalcy, and we've made amazing strides in that time. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch. We got married.
Yeah.
I went from being incarcerated to sitting on a beach in Bermuda for my honeymoon.
Oh my God. I
it was a beautiful thing. I said, man, I'm a small town kid from Pike County, Ohio. And I was in Bermuda, and it was the most amazing thing ever I'd seen, and that was all possible just through my recovery.
That's incredible, man. Wow. And it's so inspiring. Like, I'm inspired. A lot of people, when they hear someone's on Suboxone, I don't understand it. And when they say, well, it's, there's a lot of diversion. Any drug. I mean, I was working with a client the other day, and he was telling me about how you can buy any drug online. I mean, there's tons of diversion, whether it's insulin, whether it's heart meds, whether it's painkillers. There's always a way, there's always this black market that allows for that to proliferate. But for some reason, Suboxone gets this huge focus of that. I feel like when Suboxone comes up, that's the primary focus. And it's getting better with time. We've had pharmacists really change their hearts and their minds, because some of them are still very much caught up in like 50 years ago thinking.
Right.
But, it's all about this. It's all about showing exactly what you said, from prison to a beach, and how your life choices, how your mindset changed, how your prioritization of your life being important and invaluable, that led you to this path, man.
And it is a struggle. It is a fight. It's something you got to fight through every day almost. It might be better at times. You might go 2 or 3 weeks without that thought, but eventually you're going to have that thought, and you're going to wonder, like, what if? Could I possibly, go use again? But you just have to hang on to all that positive you have. My wife, my kids, my job. I don't want to lose any of that. I don't want to jeopardize that. I know the guy I used to be.
Yeah.
I know him very well, and I don't like him very much.
Of course.
But who I am now, I happen to like the person I've become through my recovery. And like I said, it's not easy. It is a struggle, and you have to be prepared to fight it. Sometimes at first daily.
Yeah,
but
sure.
if you stay positive and you really work the steps and just the proper recovery, you can do it. Anybody can.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm living proof of that. You can. I've tried to help numerous people, pay it forward. Even like I've offered family members, I'll give you a car if you just go get at least 30 days in a rehab. Just sober up, get your mind in a good place, because people think, oh, 3 or 4 days, I'm good. But in all actuality, it took me a couple of months, I was sober in 2 weeks, but I wasn't clean for 2 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It really took a while for me to get to the right state of mind. And just as easy as it is to get clean, it's just as easy to fall back. If you have a relapse, don't let that continue. Just, nip it in the butt right there and move forward, because they say everybody does have a relapse, I don't know. I've had millions of them, it seems like, prior to this last time. And I really think I've turned a corner, and I would never use drugs again. I mean, just the things that I have done since, getting sober, that's really changed my life and for the best, that I will never want to jeopardize that or go back to using again.
Sure. And I think a lot of the things that made make anyone who's got an addictive personality, myself included, if you can, when drugs hijack that addictiveness, that's actually a really positive thing. A lot of people who beat addiction, they go on to live these amazing lives. Like Robert Downey Jr., for example. He was one of the worst addicts you could ever imagine with drugs, but then away from drugs, he was able to, even on drugs, he was able to accumulate quite a bit of success. And then away from them, he's become a philosophical person who's unbelievably talented, and he's able to share that. And as with yourself, you were able to take these traits of addictiveness and rechannel them into a way that built a life that is, most people are envious of. And it's something that for you to say, I've been there, I haven't had, born into the money. I haven't been born into this family that was like, hey, everything's fine, everything's good. They programmed you almost in a way for a downfall. But you were able to, even with that, channel that momentum into creating a life that you want. And now you kicking back on a beach, enjoying life, reflecting here with me. And
right.
And I think the top level of recovery for me is for people who've been clean and sober to then share their story. Because you go from really thinking, okay, I got to be good, I got to be straight, I got to be fine. And you always keep that. But the next mindset of graduation to me is when that person goes, you know what, other people can do this too. I want to help them. How can I share what I'm doing to better affect people who are maybe not so into recovery as I am? Right. And you're there, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I am. I'm glad to do it.
What a place
I hope it helps somebody. I don't know if it will, but I really hope it does. I want to let everybody out there know that you can do it. Everybody can do it. Yeah. If you take Suboxone seriously, you can do it.
You can. And then I think the last thing I'd like to touch on, 2 more things. I want to touch on how a lot of recovery centers, they make you come back extremely frequently. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and I want your thoughts on this, I think a really good program, what they do is they give you the tools. They say, here are the tools. You need to utilize them. We're here for you as another support system. But we're going to increase the amount of freedom you have to act in your own life so that you can build what you want and not be so caught up in a facility where you're constantly having to come back. Right. And that as you do build on that trust with the clinician and the clinical team, you do have more freedom to pursue more things in life. You don't have to spend all your time in one facility. You're actually able to go out and build a family, build a business, build the things that you want in your life and prioritize those. And then the treatment mentality of substance abuse becomes more of a lifestyle versus like a full-time job of it.
Right.
Because we had a person tell us that recovery is a full-time job. And I don't agree with that. I think that recovery is a lifestyle. And if you honor the principles of recovery, being honest, being truthful, showing up, keeping yourself accountable, knowing what are triggers, what are things that might set you back, and then building those and really prioritizing those, you don't need to spend all your time in one facility. You can have freedom. You can have these things. And then with that freedom, you're able to build upon the momentum of recovery. And with that comes a better job, closer family, just a better life in general.
I mean, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that take of it, because like I have been in, like I was in this when I was on probation. They wanted me to do a recovery counselor thing, and they wanted us to come for like 8 hours a day, wow, like 3 and 4 days a week if you weren't working. And it did become a full-time job. And in a way it kind of was discouraging and disheartening. It was like, okay, I got this energy, this fire, I'm ready to get clean, but now it's being snuffed out by you rubbing my nose in it, so to speak, every day, or, sure, 40 hours a week out of recovery is a bit much. Yeah. So, I do think, early on, a couple of visits, or once every 2 weeks, whatever, you can tell the people, very early on, I think that are really going to try this time. Yeah. And I think those are the people that it's more crucial to give them a little bit of freedom. If they come back, 2 weeks and pass a drug test, and 2 weeks after that, okay, come back in a month. You seem to be taking it seriously, But whereas if they come back in 2 weeks and, pass a drug test, and you still continue to make them just constantly live the addict, or the addiction, the recovery thing, it can be a bad thing. I really do think it can hurt more than it helps some people with too much. Like you said, give them a little bit of freedom. Somebody that wants to take it seriously, yes, is going to. And, like I personally love, when we have our groups and we're able to share, some people are like, oh, let's just get out of here. But, it does help just to talk about things and remember that you are in recovery. Yeah. You don't get so caught up in just like, okay, I'm clean and this and that. But once a month, it is good to just get that out and, you know, say things you've accomplished, you know, get something off your chest that's bothered you over the last month and through your recovery, you know, that can be very good. But too much of that could be bad. I could see it being bad. Personally, for me, it just made me like, man, I want to go get high now after somebody telling me for, you know, 30, 40 hours a week that I'm nothing but a drug addict and I have to do this or that to overcome it.
That is the absolute worst, because that old set mentality of beating people up over it, you know, I'm full on in belief, and what I love about our center, really feel like our facility is very motivational.
Mm-hmm.
And we even in group, you know, I try and lead with a motivational aspect, an element that, you know, no matter what, even if you've relapsed, how can we reprogram your treatment plan, your path of recovery, so that we better prevent that, versus saying, man, you're a drug addict, this is hopeless, because that breeds hopelessness, that breeds the whole, I mean, that's what people came in here for, right?
Right.
And to look at them and say, well, you know, I mean, what a doomful thing to do to someone.
You know, like I went to an NA meeting one time, and the very first thing that the lady said up front was, you're an addict. You're going to be an addict for the rest of your life. And while that may be true, you know, you might have, but like you said, you can channel that into other things. You know, I would much rather be addicted to my movies or my video games or my kids. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You don't have to be addicted to that. You can have an addictive personality. But I think, you know, through the proper channels and, you know, like you said, the counseling and just being around somebody, some place that is going to uplift you as opposed to rub your nose in it or whatever you want to call it, you know, just be negative or, you know, constantly beating that in your brain to where you're like, okay, you're an addict. You're always going to be an addict.
Yes.
Know how to face this, know how to face that. You know, just give me the tools and let me go do the work.
Yes.
That's the way I think it should be.
I agree. And crushing stigma, you know, this is our main goal with these videos, is to annihilate stigma, because people, we've seen a ton of people who are just buying Suboxone off the street. They're not using any other drugs, just Suboxone, but they're so afraid to come into a facility because the judgment they'll fear. They don't want to admit to it to their families and maybe even themselves that they've got a problem. They'd rather just manage it themselves. But then they come in and they experience this atmosphere, and it changes. And as that spreads, as we keep fighting against stigma, I feel that it'll just get better and better. And hopefully we can see 2021, 2022 to drop in these overdose deaths, because, you know, these overdose deaths, the number one killers are age 22 to 44.
Right.
People in the prime of their life, these little kids dying, and it's a tragedy.
But
people like you, man, are crushing it. So last thing is, what is next for Daniel? What is next in your life? What would you like your life to take shape as, and, you know, your journey forward?
Oh, well, I'm hoping I'll just become rich here soon. I just invested in some cryptocurrency. I'm hoping it's going to blow up. You know,
right.
I'm focusing on, you know, some financial aspects. My daughter's actually getting ready to turn 16, so we're going to be getting her a car, and I mean, that's a whole nother worry right there. But you know, just taking it. I still take it one day at a time. I think ahead, but I try to live one day at a time.
Yeah.
Think ahead, live one day at a time. That's helped me. Like we got, you know, trips planned for this summer, a couple different vacations, one for me and my wife, one for my whole family, as well as, you know, we're working on the house. That we bought a house, and that was a big thing, you know. We're fixing it up. I just purchased a new floor to put down for the kitchen, and we're going to redo our own countertops, make them, and, you know, just things like that is what I'm wanting to do. I want to just keep focusing on my family and set, you know, short-term goals. You know, I have some other personal goals like lose weight and stop smoking, things like that. But that's really what I'm wanting to do. And I'm really hoping, like you said, that the awareness of Suboxone does raise a little bit, because people do look at it in a negative light. You know, you do get judged sometimes when you go to a pharmacist or wherever, you know, and that's something I think people got to learn. That's why I want to do the video, to bring up, like, you can succeed with Suboxone. It's not bad. It's not, it can be a miracle drug, so to call it, or whatever.
Right. Well, those doctors too, the pharmacists, when you go into them, and if you get a good pharmacist, you know, they would really look at you and they would say, how's recovery going? What do you guys learn about in counseling?
Right.
Good job. I'm happy that you're doing this. Instead of being in limbo on the street buying God knows what, usually fentanyl. And so, man, you are truly incredible, and
thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this, Daniel. For real, man. Thank
Appreciate
you. So we're so excited to have you at our facility and to move forward. And guys, until next time.
Thanks.